Welcome to the Two Blokes Chatting radio show on 94.7 The Pulse. Music, interviews, news, and, well, two blokes chatting. Now, here are the two blokes.
Good morning, Rob. I only ever got Charlie Rich in my house growing up.
Well, it's interesting, Nick, it's Neil here. G'day, how are you? We had a thing in Australia in 1970 called the 1970 radio ban, and a lot of the artists that you would, well, not you so much because I suspect you went around, but a lot of the artists in your part of the world, people like Mungo Jerry and Mary Hopkin and a few of these, they were never given the chance to have their songs played in Australia during that period of time because the record companies wanted the stations to pay royalties on them. So instead, the record producer in Australia went over, bought all these records, brought them back and said, make that. So there's a whole lot of songs from about 70, 71 where Australian artists did songs that were traditionally associated with English.
Yeah, well, there you go. I mean, Manchester's obviously, very much a music town, and nobody had jobs, so, you had to fill your time in, and, you either played football, cricket, or
music.
I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah. You didn't realise you were coming onto a music discussion program, did you? You thought you had to talk cricket.
Just on that, Nick, in your career, you would have had one of those, I can't remember what they were called, those little Walkman or something. Did you utilise one of them while you were preparing to bat?
Yeah, well, I kind of went through, so I started with a Walkman, definitely, and cassettes, and then we progressed to a CD, personal CD player, which was kind of like a
that was
small
the Discman.
Yeah, Discman. And then I think I probably finished with, when I was finishing, I probably had an iPod. I think one of them shuffle iPod things that, yeah.
And because Rob's so old that he used to back up a trailer with his mum and dad's radiogram on the back.
I most certainly did. It was good. Who got you going the most to go out and face some of the fastest bowlers in the world? Were you a Beatles man?
Oh, I didn't really listen to much, in the morning before cricket. It was more sort of after cricket. But Oasis was probably, I grew up, I actually went to school with the Gallaghers. Well, I went to the same school. They didn't actually go to school. They didn't turn up.
Did they used to beat each other up in the schoolyard?
No, they were very rarely at school.
Yeah, well, under no circumstances look back in anger. That's all I would suggest you do. Hey, we probably should talk about cricket because that's what you're known for.
Now, before we do that, I want to talk about something else. The only time I've actually seen you live was at a recent Taverners Breakfast on Australia Day where our favourite MC, Ian Cover, interviewed you in what was a slow start but turned out to be one of the more entertaining interviews I've had at one of those functions. I don't know if you'd had much to do with Ian Cover prior to that, but did you enjoy that little chat?
Yeah, I did. I know I've done some work with Ian before, and it was a little bit, I wasn't sure what the audience was going to be. It was pretty early. I'd been in the car for an hour and a half driving from Melbourne. We had a game that day. I think we were playing Casey South Melbourne. So it was a mixed audience. So I had to kind of throw away a few of my, my stories.
More colourful stories?
Yeah, it was a nice morning. It was nice to see Paul Sheehan and Ian Redpath there, and the Lord Taverners. I presume, I think they're born out of the UK. The Taverners is a big organisation in the UK too, so it's great that there's a Geelong part to that. And it was a really nice morning.
Yeah, they do a fantastic job raising money for those less fortunate that can still play a part in the game that we all know and love. Well, we've interviewed you. This is the third time. One was not long after your appointment, and you were a bit open-eyed about what it would be like just on the verge of the season when you had a little bit more understanding of the group. Slightly slow start. You probably, in the first 11, lost a couple of games maybe that you'd regret, but certainly over the last month or so, the side's been going really, really well, and all the good players are in good nick. So is this a bit of taking time to get the Nick Speak philosophy into the group?
No, I mean, we were just trying to get combinations right. Our draw was pretty challenging early. We ran into Essendon, who have tailed off somewhat since, but they're a strong side, pretty experienced, in Carlton second. But I think the win against University was a telling. Wayne McDonald, who is a pivotal player, really keeping and batting 3, made a really nice 100. And yeah, we've just been trying to get. I think the challenge has been our bowling combinations. We really are quite very, very young in that area. When you look, all the experience is pretty much stacked on the batting side. We're averaging 250 runs a game. I think we've scored 400 more runs than any other team in the comp, aggregate-wise. But our bowling, the Glinchies are kind of one experienced bowler, and we've been playing a lot. Well, Butterworth is 30, but he's going on 17. You know,
sounds like Rob.
I'm saying that in the nicest possible.
No, I know what you mean, Rob. We know Hayden pretty well, and yeah, I know exactly what you mean by that.
Yeah. So, yeah, the bowling combinations and partnerships have been challenging, but we've got O'Connell back now and Couch back from their Big Bash hubs and holiday or whatever. Well, it's not a holiday, but neither of them really played an awful lot, which is unfortunate.
But that's an interesting question, though, Nick, because something I was going to ask you. So before I forget, those two guys, you know, obviously Aaron Finch, part of the club, and you know, obviously knows what he's talking about. Those young fellas going up and getting that opportunity to play with and against some of the very best cricketers in the world, albeit not necessarily the kind of cricket that they need to play for Geelong, must be just a massive boost for them and a massive boost for the club.
Yeah, absolutely, and both have come back. You know, Brodie Couch is 21, I think, and you know, there's a lot expected of him, but he's he's not immature, but he's immature in the fact, you know, the volume of cricket that he's played. But he's come back a different, you know, he's confident, his control looks better. O'Connell bowled really nicely against Melbourne on Saturday. So, yeah, it has to be good for them. I think Tom was a lot more involved at the Stars. He was the X factor several times. They used him as their kind of fielding guy. He's a very, very good fielder. Couchie's experience was more at training. I think he might have been close a couple of times, obviously. So, yeah, I mean, definitely good for them too, and great for the club.
Because my observation as a very poor cricketer is that the 5 or 6 hours you spend out on the ground during the day obviously helps you learn, but watching the guys who know what's going on in the preparation, the training, not just being in the nets, but just watching the way they come in and get themselves organised, that would be invaluable, you would think.
Yeah, and yes, yeah, absolutely. And when you're in a dressing room like that, everybody has a different routine, pretty much. You know, they will prepare in different ways. So if you do have your eyes open, as I said at the breakfast, the great Clive Lloyd, his first 3 words to me were look, listen and learn, the 3 L's. So, yeah, just to watch and see how people do prepare. And I'm sure Aaron Finch prepares somewhat better now than he did when he was younger.
Yes, I'd suggest.
and that's completely understandable. It's not a flippant statement. It's true. You know, you work out what's best. You look and you use. And I mean, we used to drink in my day in county cricket. We used to drink before the game and after the game.
Goodness.
Work that out, Rob. and we didn't drink in the morning, but
I was going to say there were day games.
Well, that was back in the days when cricketers used to play every day of the week, and now the poor prima donnas need a week off every couple.
Yeah, that's right.
It drives me crazy, but that's a story for another day. Just on that bowling theme, you have done so well as a group without Couch and O'Connell and putting an enormous amount of pressure on your young group of bowlers. With those two back in, and now at the back end of the season, are you pretty confident that you can build a serious finals campaign?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we need to get there first, and today's not playing today. I think a bookmaker probably against Camberwell would have had us maybe $1.60 today, you know, with all due respect to them. So it's not a great game to miss, really, and share the points. And we do have some difficult games coming up, but I think definitely if we make the 8, we'll be a team that sides won't want to play.
Yeah, on the batting group, you mentioned Josh McDonald's 100, but he's probably had his best year for the club for consistency. He was very much a 60 off 40 and then a couple of ducks and another 40, but he's a little bit more consistent this year and going on. Eamon Vines' numbers are staggering. I didn't think he'd had the year that he had quite, but when you look in the stats and My Cricket, he's the second most productive player in the competition. But Jackson, up and coming, he's now become a really good player. But I've liked the contributions of Boyd and the Larkins and even the tail enders with the bat. That must really please you.
Yeah, I mean, it's obviously, I guess my bent is towards batting. I guess I have more knowledge there and I think, we definitely need a focus at the start of the year was making sure that we use all our lists. You know, I mean, you might bat 9 or 10 because that's where you are, but you don't need, you don't have to bat like a 9 or a 10 or an 11. So, contributions have been there. McGlinchey finished the game for us against University. Tyler Larkin won us the game against Ringwood. Boyd's played really good in the 5 spots. So, and Josh Larkin has contributed too. So, I mean, I agree. We've played pretty well through, right down the list.
Just leaving the club, which is in pretty good hands, and we certainly wish you well for the rest of the season. But there's a part of the game now that's constantly under the microscope, in my opinion, literally in some senses. But you touched on it in a sort of somewhat flippant, humorous manner at the breakfast, and that is umpiring. It's maybe not as good as it should be, considering it's been given a dose of professionalism over the years with training for umpires. But I want to talk to you about the effect that DRS has on not just the group that it affects at test level and a little bit of the Big Bash type stuff, but the filter down effect on aspiring umpires, because I think DRS should be gone, because umpires, like players, train to be the best they can be. When they get the opportunity, they should be judged on performance, but really all they do is hang on to jumpers and hats and count to 6 once they get to the highest level, which seems quite ridiculous.
It sounds like a statement that, and it's pretty accurate, I think. I mean, I think DRS originally, or the review system came in to try and remove, I guess, the howlers, and it's morphed out of that now into, like you say, pretty much a fallback for umpires. I personally think that the only review should be by the umpires, so it should be taken away from the players. Because again, I mean, that it slows the game down. I think the players have enough to process, in test cricket. Just watching this last series, when you look at Payne, who has to keep, and I think it affects his keeping, and he didn't have the best series with the gloves. He has to captain, he has to manage the DRS as well, and keep. I mean, you saw mistakes from him, didn't you? Mm. And you saw with both the gloves and, the reviews. So I'd take the reviews away from the players and give them to the umpires, and then that might actually encourage umpires then to make more decisions on their own.
I think the other side of the equation too, Nick, is that I'd be comfortable enough to leave it with the players, but not broadcast the assessment by the umpire, particularly on the scoreboard. So, in other words, something happens, they give out LBW, the batter says, no, I'm out. We go to the other umpire, and they decide, and they come back and they go, yeah, you're right. Don't put it on the TV where everyone knows the result before the players do, and that's, I think, as much a problem as well.
Yeah.
Part of the entertainment package.
Oh, absolutely. The media would never buy it, but I think that's as much as anything, because you've got potentially on Boxing Day, you've got 90,000 people who know what the outcome is before the umpire does.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not a good aesthetic, is it?
No,
really?
it's ridiculous.
It's not a good look. I mean, playing county cricket through the 80s and the 90s, the umpires were very much part of the game. We talked off air about David Lloyd, who went from being a player to an umpire to a coach to a commentator, and Bumble was, he was just part of the game. And I mean, Dickie Bird made a living saying not out. He basically, his default decision was not out, so you kind of knew where you were with him. And I don't think they took themselves as seriously as umpires do now. Saying that, though, I thought Paul Reichel had a really, really good series.
Yeah, he did indeed, and interesting. I was going to ask about the ex-player factor. A lot of the umpires that you had through your first-class career, I imagine, played first-class cricket or played a very high standard of cricket.
All of them, yeah.
And this was so that gave you an enormous amount of respect. And I guess when you have that respect for the officialdom, then it sort of diffuses a lot of potential tension over a day where they do get one wrong. And I see that as a big issue at the moment. Outside of Paul Reichel, the umpiring fraternity in Australia has pretty much been lifetime umpires who I don't reckon have that connection to the playing group that you had.
Blocker Wilson?
Yeah, he's one other, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, there's a couple now. Sean Craig. It's. I mean, there was a push. Obviously, Paul Reichel was basically encouraged. He was fast-tracked and encouraged. And I think Australian players first-class players have tended to head away and do other things after cricket. And then obviously the international players are, they can get in the commentary box. It's a lot more lucrative and easier existence than being an umpire. So it's hard. It seems more of a natural progression in the UK. I mean, a lot of my roommate for 10 years, Graham Lloyd, son of David Lloyd, is an umpire now. I cannot believe he's an umpire. I mean, he berated umpires for 15 years. But
Stands in front of the mirror and abuses himself every morning.
But he's very good, and he's heading in the right direction.
That's good stuff.
I mean, we need them, don't we? We need them. And
have to have them. They're a big part of the game, in my opinion, and should be left to be judged on their performance. And if they get a few wrong, so be it. But I like your idea. By all means, if DRS has to be there, the umpires only are the ones who call on it. We've got to take the nonsense, because it's becoming part of gamesmanship now, this DRS. I just don't like it. It's an ugly look, and it's going to ruin our game that's already on a path that way anyway. Enough of statements from me. Nick, thank you for your time. I get a bit grumpy about that, as you can tell.
A bit.
We really appreciate...
Sorry, just one more thing. I mean, last year, was it last summer or the summer before? Australia employed somebody to actually sit outside of the ropes, and basically, they were watching and trying to prompt.
Yeah, Peter Hanscom did that.
Yeah, so it's very open to. Anyway, it's in topic all the time, isn't it? It's never really off the table.
No, it isn't. And,
hopefully they'll sort it out.
It needs to be. Nick, thanks for your time. We would love the opportunity to chat at least once more time before the season ends. Hopefully the season continues first of all, but we really appreciate your time,
certainly,
and your openness in the conversations we've had. Look forward to another chat.
Okay, it's a pleasure. Thank you.
Good on you. Nick Speake, coach of the Geelong Cricket Club, and a delightful gentleman he is, and you probably need to be in an environment of a closed room breakfast with someone as clowny as Ian Cover to get the best out of him, but he has got that wonderful Northern English sense of humour for sure.